So I'm already really awkward in front of the camera. For hello, how are you today?
Oh,
How does the video look?
too bright over here. It needs to be.
This is too bright. You can turn it down.
Like,
You walked in at the right time because I can actually like talk to you. I don't know what it is about talking to a camera in a room with no one there that's just incredibly fucking awkward. But anyways, so I'm making this YouTube series so that I can keep track of what's going on the Forester in the future, because all of the stuff that's going on with the Forester is really wacky, and I have to keep it semi-organized. And I'm trying to make this kind of like an archive. So the Forester, to get you up to speed on what's going on with it, because I'm starting this in the middle of the build. The Forester I bought for $400, and I decided that I wanted to make it a drift car, mostly because the chassis weight, chassis dimensions, and all that match up pretty well with a correct drift car. That's where I was like, make a Forester, and I've always liked hatches. So I went ahead and bought the Forester, and then I started trying to figure out what the best way of making the Forester rear-wheel drive was. And the best way that I could think of doing it, because every time that I tried to make the OEM Forester's rear end work correctly, I found another thing that I'd have to buy that was exceptionally expensive, and I figured out that the cheapest and most direct way to make the Forester rear-wheel drive was to replace the entire rear subframe with an FRS rear subframe, because then I get good axles, good suspension, good geometry, and a helical limited slip diff all in one shot. I bought everything from the engine flange back, so the transmission, drive shaft, a pedal assembly, starter, loaded rear subframe with brakes and differential, axles and everything for $750. So as far as that investment goes, it's already relatively pretty cheap. I'm trying to do this for as cheap as possible while still keeping it good and reliable. So the things that I have left on my plate right now are building a fuel cell. And the way that I'm planning on doing that, so that it is safety compliant and so that it's actually usable on the street, is I'm planning on doing 2 separate fuel cells. I'm planning on having basically like a large surge tank, so like a 3-gallon surge tank, mounted underneath the car, with all of the lines plumbed and everything, and then have, like, let's say a 10-gallon fuel cell in the trunk, and the 10-gallon fuel cell will feed into the 3-gallon fuel cell anytime that it's empty. Or for the time being, it's probably going to be on a direct connect switch. But that's one big thing that I need to fix, or not fix, but do. I'm planning on putting the EZ30 in, because that's just seemed like the most linear way to get good power out of the Forester and be able to drive well. I've got to make an instrument cluster, but the instrument cluster should be pretty straightforward because I'm going directly for an aftermarket ECU. We will see how well these statements all age. These statements, I have a funny feeling that a lot of what I'm saying is probably not going to age well, and I'm going to find out that it's a lot more complicated than what I'm talking about. I'm fairly certain that what I'm saying is about accurate, but I'm not certain beyond the shadow of a doubt. Man, I'm going to have to cut the shit out of this video. I got to put the Forester manual transmission pedal assembly in. I got to get the FRS's shift knob in the correct location. I have no idea how well that's going to fit. I'm expecting to have to cut and then re-weld the shifter assembly, either closer or further away. But that should be pretty straightforward. We'll see how well that ages. I am planning on going on Wednesday, which today is Monday, going and looking at a couple of EZ30R engines to put into the Forester and then to mate to the FRS's transmission. I'm planning on modifying the engine flange on the EZ30R to get it to fit with the starter being on the wrong side because of the FRS transmission having the starter on the wrong side. ECU, I'm skipping the OEM ECU and going directly for an aftermarket ECU. And the reason why I'm going directly for the aftermarket ECU is because it's kind of easier, because the aftermarket ECU really needs very little to run on, and it's very linear to hook up. But the OEM ECU is a little bit more complicated to hook up and make it run correctly, because you have to trick it in a bunch of different ways. Whereas if I just skip all of that and then just go directly for an aftermarket standalone ECU, it should be pretty linear. We will see how well that holds up over time. It might not age very well. There's probably going to be like 2 or 3 videos of me getting that hooked up and running correctly. Maybe I'll pull it off in one, but I have no idea. What I've done so far on the Forester is I've gotten the rear subframe mounted. So it's already sitting on the FRS rear subframe. It has suspension. It's the OEM FRS suspension, so it's not where it's going to be finally, but it sits on it, and it has suspension. So I'm counting that one as a little win. I feel like that was kind of the most complicated part of what I had to do in general. The EZ30R swap is relatively pretty linear, and a bunch of other people have already done it, so I don't foresee that being new grounds to cover. The only part that was new grounds that I needed to cover was installing the FRS rear subframe. My immediate goal for it is to be drifting with it. I want to be on the track again as soon as possible. But anyway, I don't think I need to talk about anything more.
You covered the diff, you covered
the
suspension. You've left out the part where the car was sitting on wood blocks for 3 months.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
You did forget something.
What?
The car's name.
Oh, the car's name is Doug.